Record. Hey, welcome, everyone. It's been a couple months since I've seen you all. Well, some of you have been able to see during my sabbatical, but it's nice to see everyone again. For those of you who we haven't met, my name is Phoebe Morad. I'm director of Lutherans Restoring Creation. And we are here tonight, especially as we always are, to hear what each other is doing. Oftentimes we have one or two or a few particular people who have been doing amazing things and we share it. But this time around, I think we'll have a smaller group tonight. I want to open up the floor and make sure that we even have breakout time, because sometimes you might not want to talk about all the awesome stuff you've done. Sometimes you might want to talk about the stuff that you haven't been able to do, want to get done. You just don't want to get up in front of a crowd and say, this is great. You might want to get in a small group and say, this is awful, or this is what I really want to do, or this is what I need help with, or this is what I tried and didn't work. We're going to be able to talk about a little bit more of the messy stuff tonight, if you like. Honestly, that is how these connection calls got started. There were a bunch of us that kind of kept feeling like we were hitting our heads against a wall going, why is it so hard just to get styrofoam cups out of coffee hour? Or why can't we just do this? So we decided to talk to each other through it. And that's how these calls started almost 4 years ago. Every month now we've been getting together. So I'm glad to say that there are a lot more success stories out there that we hear from. But I think, and that's why we keep sharing those successful stories and some amazing resources that each other have known about, especially through Lutheran circles. But this is a time to be able to actually unwind a little bit. I will not have the record button on when we go into breakout rooms with each other to discuss anything that's not going well. And in the meantime, though, I do want to open up with just straight off some resources. But the first resource I want to offer you all, and this is somewhat of an opening devotion to kind of set us in the right mood. And this is essentially wraps up. I came to the table of Lutherans Restoring Creation in 2010. At that point, I didn't even know what ELCA stood for, to be perfectly honest. But I learned a lot more about our theology of grace as I learned how Lutherans Restoring Creation worked and what the curriculum of this program meant. And for me, I've grown stronger in my faith, and I probably would not be interested in doing any environmental work whatsoever if I didn't learn more about Lutheran theology. And that is why I think it's important that we have Lutherans Restoring Creation. Not that Lutherans have to be the only people getting in better relationship with creation, but just because we have a certain language about it. So let's talk about it together. This happens to be a quote from a Trappist monk, actually, Thomas Merton. And this is the reminder I need most often whenever really every day, really every day I need to say this out loud. You do not need to know precisely what is happening or exactly where it is all going. What you need is to recognize the possibilities and challenges offered by the present moment and to embrace them with courage, faith, and hope. And I want you to keep, from Thomas Merton, I want you to keep that in mind as I show you a plethora of resources and all this stuff. I just want you to keep in mind that it still just matters what's in front of you. And we can hear each other's stories left and right and be inspired, but it does matter what is in front of you. Yes, I will post that in the chat as well. So I'm going to try to share my screen, and someone can unmute if for some reason it's not working. But I wanted to just start off really quickly. Some of you who might be new to our group might not know that we have this very large website that essentially, as Lutherans Restoring Creation, we don't develop a lot of material. We lift up what people have already done. And a lot of what's going on out there in the Lutheran communities are things like worship and music, are lots of little pieces. And so we're trying to collect a lot of those little bits and pieces because they pull together a marvelous story. And we can save a lot of time if we just hear from one another. So what I wanted to lift up right off the bat was that we do have this collection area of actions speak loudly. So whenever you think you want to do something, or you already have an action planned, or you've already done an action, can you go here and let us know that you've done it? So we have a share board. Essentially, if you have a big action plan, that's great. You're going to hit the action plan button and you can sit down with your congregation and pull together, maybe spend about 20 minutes filling out the survey and think about what you can do in each one of these areas. But if you just have one quick thing to share, you can also just share that story. So this is the place to go to do that. The other big thing that I wanted to highlight is that we're not all alone. I know that those of you who are able to get together on this call, you know that, but there are people who might not even have time to be able to join a call or have never heard of us. Please share this map, because certainly just knowing that there are other people within the Lutheran community, but also in the secular and just local environmental community, there is a lot going on. That's what this map is meant to help with. If you wanted to know about a congregation that either has a covenant or a green team, you can check that off and then find out a little bit more about them and what they're doing by clicking the button. Oh, look, Noni's right there. Oftentimes there's a link and you can get a little further and find out if there's someone you can talk to, if it's someone in your area, or if it looks like they've done something you want to replicate. That's where you just keep digging a little further. This is very much a choose your own adventure website, where our intention is not to keep you on this website, but to get you talking with another human as soon as possible. So if you get lost on this website, I can be that person to help you find someone else. But oftentimes people are adding their own markers to this. At the very end of this, it's add your own marker. So if you know that you're figuring out solar or figured out an incredible way to do worship, you're going to add your own marker here and describe what you've done and add your own link. So the other thing that I wanted to highlight for you tonight is that also on our site, and I'll add all of these links so you can get right to them. If you don't know how to start a conversation, in fact, speaking of starting a conversation, I'm going to stop share so I can see your faces. I think a lot of times we come into a situation thinking, I know what's most important to me, and I want to tell my congregation or whoever I'm with how to do this thing I want to do. And what this step-by-step process I hope will help you with is to recognize that we have to walk into a setting ready and willing to listen to what everybody wants to do or what's important to everybody else, and then find our way through that and find what do we have to offer with the Caring for Creation lens that can help this community do what it wants to do. If this main mission of this community is to feed hungry people, then how do we help make sure there's a Caring for Creation lens on that? This is not to arm wrestle away any other committees in your church and fight over a small budget. This is to put an eco-ethic lens on what your congregation is already doing and what already fulfills your congregation's life. So with that being said, I'll walk you through this step by step a little bit more and then put it in the chat and get some feedback. Has anyone, if anyone has ever used World Cafe Session, feel free to unmute yourself and tell us any experience you've had with a World Cafe. Kind of excited if no one's tried it before, because it's a really good tool. Okay.
So, Phoebe, is it similar to a tell a Noah dialogue?
No, not really.
Okay, because I've done tell a Noah. I've never done this other one.
Yeah. So I'm not going to play the video because I know my Zoom will definitely stop if I try to play the video. But what I've liked about the World Cafe knowledge is that you are making a space for everybody to express themselves when they don't necessarily want to be in the front of the room. Or if they don't necessarily consider themselves an expert in any topic. At coffee hour, you might want to talk about this with everybody, but people that don't know anything about environmental issues or creation care or climate change or don't want to talk about it probably won't show up. And therefore, you're only going to hear from the people that already agree with you, which is kind of a bummer. We want everybody in the room. Hosting a World Cafe session, which the key concepts are shared in this video and then a really quick one-pager, allows for a really easy dialogue to happen within 10-minute segments so that you can feel like you're kind of meandering around a room talking about a few different subjects. So if someone isn't comfortable about one particular subject area, they'll be able to move on to the next. Also, the other beautiful part about a World Cafe session is that not everyone is put on the spot to speak, but everyone is encouraged to write on a beautiful piece of paper in front of them. Or I like to bring Play-Doh whenever I do World Cafe sessions. I like to have something for people to do with their hands. But every time you move around the room, every 10 minutes, you change up what table you're at. You're able to think about things in a different way. And usually at some point, someone will be able to say something and share their knowledge. So I encourage you to dive in a little bit further as to what a World Cafe session feels like. And knowing that not many people, if any, have tried this before, I will host a whole other session about it and certainly share that. Because I think it's very helpful for a lot of different church activities, not just creation care.
Well, Phoebe, you led one for us for our retreat, and that worked out really well. I think there were a couple things that got everybody talking, so that we were. It wasn't just in the large group, but the small groups, and shared a lot of ideas. And I mean, we were all geared towards wanting to be doing creation care, so maybe that was a little bit different, but it made for really good conversation and sharing ideas, and it was really fun. We didn't want to stop. That was our problem. We didn't want to leave our tables.
And that was because you were all self-select. I mean, it was hard shutting you guys up and moving around. But with a group of people that you're really trying to get something from, it's a beautiful way to have a relaxed atmosphere. So I will certainly collect more information for you, and we'll try a World Cafe session on Zoom maybe next time, because that could be fun. So I suggest starting off with that to really open up dialogue just at coffee hour to find out what is interesting to people. The next step that I would really encourage you all to use, and Noni, you can, or Jeannie, or anybody, or Cheryl can speak to this too. I feel like being able to watch one thing together and respond to is very helpful. And this 2-minute video we have, thanks to Baird Linke, called "The Earth is Good," is a very simple invitation. And again, it's kind of to Thomas Merton's invitation to greet the present moment and embrace them with courage, faith, and hope. So watching anything together, I know a lot of us have tried watching some wonderful movies that Interfaith Power and Light has put on. Some of them might be diving into the deep end a little too quickly. So having this just very quick Lutheran branded message might be helpful after church to start some dialogue. It's positive, and it at least can get people thinking about, why does this have anything to do with church if they've never thought of that before. So, and then your next step that I'm inviting you all to do is, after you start conversation, to use that action speak loudly format to just be able to check off some stuff. Because once you check off a few things, you shout it out to this online community that we are trying to grow. But again, it's not meant to be just online. It's meant to tell the larger ELCA community, including those people that run the budgets and including, you know, your synod leaders, including bishop staff, all those sorts of people, so that they know, oh, this is important. Not only is this important, but people are working on it and it's bringing life into the church. So that is why we ask you for dessert after a conversation to say what came up and what is each, whether it's worship and music said, okay, we'll do a few more of these hymns, or we'll have a blessing of the animals, or it's your facilities volunteer that says, okay, I'll try putting in a programmable thermostat, or I'll bring in a caulking gun to, you know, save some energy on our old window panes. But it makes sure you shout that out and that you see some progress. So while it might seem small, the idea of adding your message to the rest of this online community, that idea is what Lutherans Restoring Creation is all about, to see us make more of an impact. And I'm very excited to tell you all as a first group. Okay, I told our board of directors as well, but we just got a grant for a young adult. We'll be selecting in the next couple of months, a young adult to help us reach out individually to all of the churches that answer these action plans, so that we can just have a person just tap you on the shoulder, right? I mean, people, I don't know how many times, I'm dating myself, but do you remember when you used to do quizzes in magazines and then you were done with the quiz and that was your, on top, rather than just putting away the magazine after you've done your quiz, or putting away the notebook after you've done your New Year's resolution, this means that someone's going to call you and say, so you all said you were going to do this. How's that going? And what can we help you with next? Who can we direct you to next? So I'm very grateful to know that the Stewardship of Life Institute just gave us that grant to work with a person devoted to do that. Very excited. That is what I wanted to share with you, but I can take you through our website more if anyone wants to, but I'd much rather see your faces and open it up a little bit before we go into breakouts to hear anything. If anybody does want the full stage as to what you've been up to, this is your chance to share, even if it is negative. Anyone who wants to share now rather than waiting for breakouts, I would like to invite you. Or if you have questions too about what I just put out there. Sharon, I see your hand.
Me unmute.
Oh, there you go.
There, I should be there now.
Yep.
After a long time of trying and suggesting and showing, we started a pollinator garden in June. And we did that as a trial. We're experimenting what grows, what doesn't. We want to attract pollinators and wildlife and make the soil better and all that good stuff. And I happened to be in the garden a few weeks ago on a Saturday, late in the day. Still, the sun was just not quite set yet. And I was watering the flowers and I turned around and there was a young man, a teenager, sitting on our prayer bench in front of the other part of the building, which was a gift from one of our parishioners when they lost their spouse. And I didn't want to bother him. He was deep into what he was doing. And I said, I'm not going to bother him right now. Well, God had other ideas. I was finishing up the watering and I discovered some fungi that can't be so close to some of the plants that we have. So I started moving them away. And there was a big one sitting in front of him. I said, okay, here's my moment. I went over there and I said, I really don't want to disturb you, but I would like to remove this. And he said, oh, you're not. My grandmother does that all the time. And it started a conversation. And he said, I am so grateful that you have this stretch of garden. He said, where I live, my hometown, I can't see a sunset. After spring, the soil is nothing but sand. We can't grow flowers. We don't have sunsets. He said, this is just such a place of calm and peace. And I am just so glad to come here. And we talked about a lot of things, what the reason for the garden was. And I talked about monarchs. And he said, my grandfather lives in Mexico. They celebrate Monarch Day. because in my grandfather's yard alone, there are hundreds of monarchs that come each year. And I said to him, I said, I am grateful, and it's a miracle to see one. And, you know, this was just one of these very precious moments in our garden that we had hoped would be a place where people could come and share. And totally unexpectedly, there's the moment. It was a summer moment I think I'll never forget. And as we were saying it was time to go, the sun was setting. So, I mean, it's just those moments that God gives us, I think, that make such a difference, because embracing creation is the core of our life.
Hmm.
So thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing, Sharon. Thank you. Go ahead, Mark. I see you. Oh, where'd he go? I didn't mean for him to go away.
Am I still here?
You're
Yeah.
still
No,
there.
I am. Sorry. Thanks. Yeah, in a couple days, I was supposed to be at the ribbon cutting for the 220 megawatt sunflower wind project in Marion County, Kansas, which made national PBS NewsHour a few weeks ago over the controversy. You can find that online, I'm sure, and also the county where the newspaper was raided by the local police. But I have COVID. So, but this is a big deal. We have 77 acres outside the conditional use permit, but there, and you know, my invitation's sitting on the kitchen table here, and I'm just heartbroken I won't be able to make it. But that's good news, although news today that Trump is blaming, you know, windmills on wind generators on killing the whales, offshore wind, although California is moving ahead with some pretty ambitious plans there. And then finally, a local church, Lutheran Church of Our Redeemer, where my wife manages the Redeemer's Field Community Garden, was approached by their Sacramento Municipal Utility District, and now they have 4 level 2 chargers installed, up and running in pretty short order. So good news there. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other good green news or need for advice from the entire group? Noni, I'm going to put you on the spot for a minute. I know you already spoke, but I also know that you guys just put together a pretty massive creation care plan.
Yeah, we are, our mission table is we have been brainstorming all the different ideas in the 5 areas of congregational life. And the Synod communications person had suggested that we make a year-long plan, and that we have one thing for each month in each area of congregational life to make it easier for congregations to access resources, because it's so overwhelming. So we brainstormed at a couple of our meetings, and then the last couple weeks I've been putting that together, and it's really been quite wonderful to see. It's taken from some of the things we've done. It's groups like IPL that we partner with, and it's been very exciting to see and to be able to offer this to our congregations. Now, whether or not they'll use it is always a question, but and even if they just use one thing, I think it's worth a try. So once we get it all done, we're very willing to share, because basically, I mean, there are some things that are specific to the Central State Synod, like when our state legislature begins meeting for advocacy, but that's very easy to be changed for other places. But we'll be glad to share, and I'm just so grateful for all the mission table members who have contributed, and you know, we've gotten a lot accomplished. It's pretty encouraging.
Well, I was trying to think back to when did you all first first together?
2015
Right.
was when we were established by the Synod Assembly.
And when you say established by the Synod Assembly, though, it wasn't like they just thought this up. Who was behind all that?
Oh, there was a resolution to create. I have to create
Did somebody want it? Do you, like, whoever wrote that resolution, are they on your team?
Well, I wrote it.
There you go.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, I wrote it.
Yeah.
We wanted to create an LRC mission table. And in the Central State Synod mission tables are, they were designed so that you don't have to have a committee, because committees are very cumbersome. So mission tables are when a group of people have kind of a common interest of ministry, and we're part of the synod. We don't get funding from the synod. We have our own money, but we report to them, and we're one of the ministries of the synod. I had a handful of other people that I roped into signing the resolution, but then it was wonderful because we had all these people that volunteered, like Larry Erickson and Gary and Jeannie
You've never
Anderson
met
and Jane
them.
Meyercord. And then we've gained people like Cheryl Merhoff, who is like, oh, thebomb.com when it comes to worship. So it's wonderful. And we just gained a new member. I had met him at a workshop, and he was at a green fair I saw him on Saturday. So he's joining us now. So we just keep trucking along.
Excellent. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but you all have an incredible story. And I think that if you only see you once in a while, or you see you hosting a call, you don't know what the long view of it all was. And then it did start that these resolutions that a lot of us never even knew what a resolution was, they can lead to all of these other things. You don't have to have a resolution to do all of these things, but it helps. And it helps hear from and meet people that you never otherwise would have met, I think. So,
well, and it gave us official standing in the synod, which otherwise we wouldn't have.
Yep. I will tell you too that all of the work that it took a couple of years to make sure that a memorial to reduce greenhouse gas emissions was passed at our last church-wide assembly. And a lot of people just feel like, well, it was written, but now where does that go? And I have to say that I've been in a lot of meetings lately with ELCA staff, and they really do have to react to those memorials. You know, certain offices are named as to having to react to them. People are hustling about to make sure something happens because it was written down and all the voting members voted this in. So it does have an impact as to the organizational, you know, there's those of us grassroots that are making it happen and always felt this way. And then we made it clear in this memorial that we're asking our institution to also do that. And a lot of people that I work with are grateful that there is language there so that when they write a grant, they can pull this language, or when they look to add a particular role, they use that language. So it doesn't just sit on the shelf. That's what I'm trying to say. It just takes a while to get there, but unless somebody else raises their hand and wants to speak to the whole group, I have set us up pretty randomly in rooms of about 4 to 6 people. And what I'm going to do is, I know some of you, hopefully you won't be put in a room with 2 other people that are only, you know, that are not on the screen and are cooking dinner. When I hit go, you're going to hit join so that you can go to that breakout room and talk together. The purpose of getting together, I'm going to have a very specific question for you all to share stories of when you have been most engaged in church life. I want you to think about what were the invitations that you received, and what was the work that you really enjoy doing when you've done life-giving work in your congregation. If you are not part of a congregation or don't have a good story like that to share, you can feel free to think outside of your church life. But I'd like you to take and share those personal experiences of being invited to really grow on with how you're going to invite people to do more of this work with you. Are there any questions? Oh, is 10 minutes sound good to everybody together? Well, 10, 15, maybe 10 so that we can have break. Does that sound? I'll do 10. I'll give you a warning at 10 minutes. You can always hit go back if you're stuck in a room by yourself. I'm going to pause. I'm going to record again if that's okay. And I can certainly pause recording if someone really wants to share and not be recorded. But I would love to hear if anyone was surprised as to what you remembered and recalled, or what really enticed anyone else that you heard from. Any surprises? Cheryl.
Jeannie in our group mentioned youth group. Back in the old days, there was Luther League or Walther League, and that was exciting. And I'd kind of forgotten about that. I thought, yeah, that's right. I really liked going to Walther, to be with other kids. And then also when we had regional gatherings, it was a chance to meet kids from other areas. So I liked that.
Yeah, especially meeting people from other areas. I remember that. That's why we like confirmation camp.
I liked Pastor Jim talked about hearing other people's stories and like gatherings where we can really hear depth in other people's experiences, even pain. And that resonated with me a lot, Jim, just the being with other people and hearing the depth of their experiences as like where we feel most connected to church or the body or one another.
I'll just add to that, as a pastor in a congregation, you often hear people's stories, but other people don't get that chance. And to have forums where people really do share, especially their trauma or their hardship experiences, really builds community and gives people a greater feeling that there's something important going on here in the church.
That's interesting too, Jim, to think about what pastors can offer other people in the congregation to do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Francis, did you want to say something? You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Just that I think of all the things that could bind us together, creation care has got to be one of the most exciting, because we all care about the earth. We all care about either birds, animals, dogs, or something that's creation, and even about each other. So to me, this may be our best moment ever. So.
I have to share that I'm most excited that next Sunday we have a dog walk after church, a dog or cat walk. I kind of doubt that anyone's bringing their cat, but I'm really excited about that because I don't have to plan anything. I just get to be outside with friends and dogs, and would like to all wear our God's Work, our hands shirts as well. So we, are seen along Main Street with our animals. And people might say, what are they doing? But other than that, there's not a lot of planning. I might have to pick up dog poop, but I can do that.
Our pastors told us to bring our animals inside the sanctuary. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to go. I know some people have dogs that can be on their lap, but there's others that'll be in a kennel. So I'm not quite sure. We're small and I don't know how it's going to go.
Get ready to get messy.
Yes. Wish the weather would be good and we'd just stay outside.
Right. I love Sharon's story right off the bat of this invitation of having a garden itself as an invitation to space. Yeah.
And
Yeah, Sharon, go ahead.
Creation care is exceedingly important, and I live in a community where we have over 42 brownfield sites. And each time there's a lull and we think things are finally getting on the right track, another one burns. And that happened last night. And this time agencies were there. 8 years ago, there were no agencies here. And the factory, which I live very close to, is 6 3/4 acres. And think about all of these around the country. They sit, they decay, they're dangerous, they're hazardous. And in our city, one of them has been developed into a garden and I want to say a grocery store, but it's really not a grocery store. It's where they sell fresh produce. I can't even tell you how great I feel about that. It is one, but at least it's a step towards something. And I don't know how many other people are struggling with this. It's people seem not to listen, and congregations are afraid to take a stand because they just don't know how, and they're afraid of repercussions if they do. Help.
Yeah. Well, in the invitation as well, in the spirit of invitation, I want to invite all of you. You might have seen a Facebook message that I sent from a fellow person that's done a lot of work in our Lutherans Restoring Creation realm, even though she's never been on any of these calls, is Kelly Marcialis, who has taught a lot of community organizing. And she has been able to move on to a position where she's helping Alaska, what's the whole name of the Kellogg campus of Alaska Pacific University, is specifically requesting support from Lutherans Restoring Creation Network. And I'm going to put this in the chat. It was also on Facebook, but what I wanted to share with you specifically about this is that invitation that, yes, the way that we are all living is impacting climate, as we all know, and that means that people are able to grow less and less food, especially from their own sustainable, their own farms. So her organization and work there at school has a fundraiser called We Give a Crop. Because way up in Alaska right now, they are not having the same kind of harvest as they should. Because of climate change, they're asking for our support. Every t-shirt you buy ensures that 2 pounds of fresh local organic vegetables find their way to the tables of the most food insecure households in Alaska. So a lot of times we know how our way of life is impacting our neighbors, and we know what's wrong, and we know that there are lots of technological solutions and we can just drive less and all of these things. Sometimes there's just a way to lend a hand because of this. And I appreciate Kelly offering us this invitation to just be a part of, one solution and adding to this. So I'm going to encourage you to click that link and buy a t-shirt. She's hoping that our group might be able to buy at least 10 t-shirts in the next couple of days. So I invite you to do that and feel good and get a pretty fun t-shirt as well.
Can you send the link
Yeah.
in an email, Phoebe, to buy a t-shirt? Because I don't know how to cut and save
Yes,
something from chat.
Most definitely.
Thank you.
I will do that with a lot of the materials that I shared earlier, but right now too, I will share a couple of the other materials I shared. Does anybody have any specific question about or questions about some of the materials I shared earlier, but also in general, using our website? We think of it as a library. We don't really think of it as the first place to go because you might get overwhelmed. And that's kind of how most websites are these days anyways. I guess anybody like under 30 doesn't just go to a website anymore. They hear about something on social media and might end up on a website. But most people don't really start off at a website anyways. I've been doing this too long. Do you all have any feedback for me as far as what would be more helpful on our website? What do you need to get going? Do you want to just sit down with me and I'll show you what's on our website? What would be helpful, and is it found on a website?
Phoebe, is there some way when you get something really important that you could have like a flash on one of the entry screens and just say, this came up, this is really important, check it out or something?
Yeah, those are the sliders that we have, but that kind of news I usually put on like Facebook, but if you're not on Facebook, then that could be one of the sliders that's really the most important. Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep. Could definitely make that part just bigger, flashier. Smack you in the face.
I don't know if other people would appreciate it, but if you could do a session on walking us through the website, because there is a lot on it. And at some points, it's a little bit difficult to negotiate it all. So I would appreciate an education from you on, I don't know if others are interested. If they're not, that's okay. But
Yeah. And I think as I realized, I was thinking I might do that tonight. And then I realized too, my Zoom would stop. If I made maybe a 5 to 10 minute recording
mhm.
on Zoom and then share that, would that be helpful? And then you could keep going back to it as well. All right.
What do others think?
I agree. I think it's a lot. It can be overwhelming. I like the library analogy, Phoebe. But yeah, I think a quick run through would be helpful.
Jim, I know that you've been trying to ramp up a new team out where you live. How is that going with your fresh eyes? How have you found, do people want more information? What do they want to get together?
Well, I'll just say briefly, I know there isn't much time, but essentially for the others to know, coming out of the class, the climate justice class from PLTS, I came up with the idea of sort of a mini Lutherans Restoring Creation in my own area. This includes San Diego all the way up to the border, basically with LA. So it's connecting with people within our churches, and I'm trying to identify some of those people that have a passion about climate issues, but maybe don't have a big core of other people that are connected. So it's building a network of those folks, and that's coming along slowly, but we have a very passionate small group, and we're starting to do some classes in different churches. So I get invited to congregations to do a Bible class or to preach on environmental things, and that's kind of helping to build the network. But in the process, I also always tell people, look to Lutherans Restoring Creation for a much bigger sense of the broader community. And so it's coming along. It's been kind of interesting. It's been good.
Good to hear too that it helps to start with being there.
Yeah.
Being invited someplace and talking to people. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Unless there's another burning question, Jamie Stark has offered to close us in prayer. And I will say too that for the next session, I will pull together something about the World Cafe method. So unless anybody else has a particular desire or need to share something in particular for October, I think that's a really a nice thing to focus on is the World Cafe method. So sound good.
Thor, did you have a quick question? Your hand was up.
Oh, sorry, I missed it.
Oh, it's I'm trying to get a community of people to kind of tackle the larger issue. This has been an exceptional year for global temperatures, of the warmth of the Gulf of Mexico, the droughts, Mississippi, saltwater intrusion on the New Orleans is now a huge thing. And I understand that most people in the ELCA are passionately devoted to social issues, social justice issues, and what's right in front of them. But these bigger things are beginning to press in on people, and I want them to have the confidence, the understand, and know what the right action is. And I haven't quite got the way to connect to people to really do that. I mean, I work with a lot of congregations, a lot of interfaith groups, and it's a delicate message to say you're leaving out the elephant in the room.
And I am, thank you for that. I am hearing that be inserted more often, unfortunately, in the realm of Lutheran disaster response, to make those connections. So it comes from the people that are there to help bring relief, but to also then think forward to why is this happening more? And what are the resiliency efforts? So unfortunately, it's because it is to a disaster point now that it is being understood that way. So thank you for bringing that up. Were there other hands that I missed? Okay. Over to you, Jamie. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's pray. Lord, send your spirit to bless our prayer, our words, our thoughts, and our actions in this season of creation care. Bless our services, the blessings of the animals, the memorials of St. Francis, and all that he gave us an example to care for ourselves, our brothers and sisters, that are animals, plants, and the beautiful nature around us. Give us this time to inspire our congregations and our neighbors, people in church and out of church, to be part of this beautiful movement to care for our world, to make it more livable for our children and our children's children, and give us the wisdom, the strength, and the friendships to make that possible more and more every day. In Jesus Christ, Lord's name we pray, amen.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.